All right. Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive, where we take the sources you send us and we kind of dig in and see what we can learn.
Absolutely.
So today's dive is all about MrBeast,
Yeah.
the YouTube phenomenon. And you sent us a great article, actually, called MrBeast Just Conquered YouTube, What's Next?
Mm.
So, we see the headlines, MrBeast this, MrBeast that.
Right.
But I think there's probably a lot more to this guy's story.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's dive in.
Yeah.
So I was looking through the article, and obviously the big thing is he just hit 271 million subscribers.
Right.
Which is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and he took over that #1 spot from T-Series.
Right.
Which is a huge deal. I mean, especially, we all remember the PewDiePie versus T-Series battle.
Right.
And there was a lot of, anxiety about corporate content, taking over YouTube.
Right.
And so the fact that MrBeast, an individual creator, was able to take that top spot back is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of like he, I don't know if you saw this, but he kind of said he was avenging PewDiePie.
Right. Yeah. He said something to that effect, like it was for PewDiePie or something like that.
Yeah. It's like this torch has been passed.
Mm.
But yeah, I noticed the article talked about how he was kind of obsessed with the YouTube algorithm from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like he was treating it like a science experiment.
That's a great way to put it, actually, because, I mean, he's even said in interviews that, he spent years just obsessively studying the algorithm, what makes videos work, what makes them not work.
Wow.
So, I mean, you can't really look at his success and say, oh, he just got lucky.
Right.
It's no, this was years of dedication and really treating this not even just a job, but a lifestyle.
Right. So it's not like he's clocking in and clocking out. He's living and breathing YouTube.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even his content, you see it, right? It's all these big spectacles.
Yeah. So counting to 100,000 or giving away cars and houses.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
But at the same time, it's there's this whole other side of it, which is the back end, the optimization.
Right.
I think the article even mentioned him testing the brightness of his thumbnails.
Oh, yeah.
To see what would get people to click.
Yeah. And, you might think, oh, that's such a small detail. Who cares?
Right.
But I think that's actually a key part of his strategy is understanding those little things that most people wouldn't even think about.
Right.
And how they all add up to really optimizing for the algorithm.
And this is where it gets really interesting to me because, you look at his content and there's this theme of poverty versus opulence.
Right.
He's either giving money to homeless people.
Yeah.
Or he's recreating Squid Game.
Yeah.
These really elaborate things.
Yeah, it's this weird juxtaposition, right? You have these really over-the-top displays of wealth, but then it's often in the context of giving back or helping people. Right.
Or highlighting, economic disparity.
What do you make of that?
I mean, it's definitely one of his signature moves, and it's part of what makes him so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Because it's controversial. Some people look at it and they're like, this is exploitative.
Right.
You're using people's misfortune or their, difficult situations for entertainment.
Right.
And then other people are like, no, this is great. He's actually helping people.
Right.
He's bringing attention to these issues.
And it's interesting, too, because it's almost like he's turning capitalism itself into a meme.
Right.
The article mentioned that moment where he climbed a mountain in Antarctica.
Yeah.
And then immediately named it after Shopify. His brand partner.
Yeah, it's he's not even trying to hide it. It's just yeah, this is how the game works.
Right.
I'm going to climb this mountain and I'm going to slap a brand name on it.
So it's some people might find that crass.
Sure.
But it's also kind of making a statement, I think it's definitely thought-provoking, right? It makes you question, what is philanthropy? What is entertainment?
Right.
Where's the line between those things?
Right. And it's where do you stand on this? Is it genuine generosity?
Is it savvy marketing? Is it both?
Right.
I think it's something worth considering, as we explore the rest of his journey.
Right.
Because I think that tension is kind of at the heart of what he does.
Yeah.
This blurring of the lines between doing good and taking entertainment.
Right.
And, building a business.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it is.
And it's definitely worth a deep dive.
Absolutely.
It's that Shopify mountain.
Oh, yeah.
It's just such a perfect example of how he just pushes boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's entertainment and entrepreneurship, all mixed up.
Right.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, the article also talks about his ambitions beyond YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's not content with just being the biggest YouTuber.
He wants to take over the world.
He wants it all. He wants to be everywhere.
Yeah, well, he's got this deal with Amazon Prime Video, right?
Right, for that show Beast Games.
Beast Games, yeah.
Which is supposed to be like this massive reality competition.
Yeah, like the biggest one ever, I think he said.
With a $5 million prize.
Yeah, that's crazy.
$5 million.
Like, who even has that kind of money to give away?
I mean, it's like attention grabbing.
Oh, absolutely.
But it also makes you wonder, like, can he replicate his YouTube success on a totally different platform?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, YouTube is one thing.
Right.
But Amazon Prime, it's a whole different audience, a whole different system.
And it's interesting because the article mentions how he's been quoted saying that he sees personality as a limitation.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, it's not about who he is.
Right.
It's about what he does.
It's about the spectacle. It's about the money. It's about the action.
So how does that translate to Amazon Prime, you know, where people might be looking for something different?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big unknown, right? Like YouTube, he's figured out the algorithm. He's like mastered it.
Right.
But Amazon Prime, they have their own recommendation system.
Right.
It's not just about like viral moments. It's about like what people are searching for, what they're already watching.
So it's not just a matter of like taking his YouTube style and just plopping it down on Amazon.
Exactly. Yeah, he's going to have to adapt. He's going to have to figure out like what works on that platform.
It's a whole new game.
It is. Yeah, it's a big experiment.
But, you know, it's not just Beast Games, right?
No. He's got his fingers in all sorts of pies.
The article talks about Feastables, his chocolate bar company.
Oh, yeah.
And then all this stuff with Team Trees and Team Seeds.
Right, all the philanthropy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a whole other side of him, right?
It's like you see that and you think, okay, maybe he does actually want to make a difference.
I mean, it's hard to argue with like planting millions of trees or cleaning up the oceans.
Right, and it's millions of dollars raised for these causes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it kind of contrasts with some of the criticism he gets about like using wealth and spectacle, you know, for entertainment.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, maybe he is actually trying to do some good in the world.
Right. It's like complicates the picture a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It makes him a much more complex figure than just like, oh, he's just a YouTuber who gives away money.
Right. And then there's this whole thing with the MrBeast Burger lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, like that was a big setback for him.
It was, I mean, he ended up suing the company that was running the MrBeast burger chain.
Right, because he was saying that the food was bad.
Yeah, like the quality was just terrible and it was hurting his brand.
Which is interesting because it's like, this guy is known for being so meticulous. And planning everything out.
Yeah, and yet somehow this like blew up in his face.
Yeah, so it's like even he can't control everything.
It just goes to show you, like, no matter how successful you are, things can still go wrong.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, I guess.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So I guess the big question is, you know, can he sustain this level of success in the long run?
Like, is this just a flash in the pan?
Right.
Or is he actually building something that's going to last?
Yeah, is he going to be like the next Disney?
Right, or is he going to be like, you know, whatever the flavor of the month is and then disappear in a couple of years?
Right.
It's hard to say.
So as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, you know, it's clear that MrBeast's story is far from over.
Oh, absolutely.
This guy's constantly pushing boundaries, experimenting, evolving.
He's not going to stand still, that's for sure.
It's going to be interesting to see what he does next.
Yeah, who knows what he's going to come up with.
Yeah, it really makes you think, you know, like, how is this going to affect, like, the future of content creation?
Yeah.
Like, is this the new blueprint, you know?
Well, I think what's interesting about MrBeast is that he's not even really just a creator anymore. You know, he's like a full-blown brand. He's built this like whole production machine that just churns out these like massive, you know, attention-grabbing spectacles. It's like he's an industrialized virality, you know?
So are we moving away from the days of like personal vlogs and like, you know, that kind of intimate connection to just like these big budget productions?
I think it's a trend that we're definitely seeing, you know.
Right.
And I think MrBeast is like at the forefront of it.
Because he's figured out how to cut through the noise. With all this like crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, attention spans are shrinking. People are bombarded with content. So you got to do something big.
You got to do something crazy.
Yeah, you got to stand out.
To get noticed.
Exactly.
But, you know, there's also that whole ethical dimension we were talking about. Like, where's the line between genuine generosity and just like calculated spectacle?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah. Like when you see him, helping people see again or giving away huge sums of money,
Right.
it's hard not to feel like, okay, maybe he is actually trying to do some good.
Right.
But then you wonder, is this all just for the cameras?
Right. Is it just for the views? Is it just to like boost his brand?
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's an easy answer to that.
Right. It's really up to each individual to kind of decide,
what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, what they're comfortable supporting.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. Like, as viewers, we have a responsibility to be aware of these things.
Right.
Like, what are the motivations behind the content we're consuming?
Right.
What are the potential consequences of our engagement?
Right.
It's not just about passively watching anymore.
Right.
It's about like actively participating and shaping the media landscape.
And our views and our and our shares all like feed into that.
Absolutely. They send signals to the algorithm.
Right.
They send signals to the creators.
So we're not just like mindless consumers.
No, we have power.
Right. We have a voice.
Yeah. And we need to use it wisely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of MrBeast, I think we're left with more questions than answers.
That's always a good thing.
But it's good.
Yeah, it means we're thinking critically.
Right. It means we're engaging with these complex issues.
Exactly.
And we're becoming more informed consumers of content.
And that's really the goal of a deep dive, right?
Right. It's not about like reaching some definitive conclusion.
No, it's about sparking curiosity.
Right.
Encouraging you to think for yourself.
Yeah, and to keep questioning.
Yeah, and to keep exploring.
So thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
On this deep dive into the world of MrBeast.
It's been a wild ride.
We've talked about his rise to fame, the controversies, his ambitions beyond YouTube, and what it all means for the future of content creation.
Right.
And, MrBeast's story is just one example of how the lines are blurring between entertainment and entrepreneurship.
And digital influence.
And it's a trend that I think is only going to accelerate.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's important to stay informed, to stay engaged.
Stay curious.
And to keep asking the tough questions.
Exactly.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.
Until next time.